Hey guys, sebchoof here. What is the best ST set in Realm of the Mad God? Well, that is my new mission to find out. I'm going to be ranking them all, including the early game, the mid game, and the end game sets. There's too many of these, so I'll be splitting them up into different stages of the game per video, starting with early game sets for this one. Make sure to subscribe for the rest of the videos, and just click the like button while you're down there, man. I'll be judging these sets on how strong they are for how obtainable they are, basically letting you know whether a set is worth going for on a brand new character. We'll start with the sexiest early game set, the Vampire Rogue set, which turns you into this sick bat while moving. This set drops from the Mana of the Immortals, so we're already off to a bit of a bad start since there's basically no other reason for a rogue to farm the Mana. Some of the sets that we'll be talking about come from a dungeon that you're going to be farming on that class anyway because the dungeon is so good for the class, so you can just end up with this set. And it makes them a better option since you don't have to go out of your way. But on the other hand, there's sets like this one that make the only reason to farm a particular dungeon. You're gonna have to be doing this dungeon quite a few times, as goes with any ST set, but it doesn't feel as painful if you can get other cool things from it. At least farming the Dead Church biome for Mana of the Immortals isn't so bad because you can also come across cursed libraries for the Corruption Cutter and the Level, cemeteries for the Ring and the Cloak, and Davies for the Dagger. The weapon and the ability of this ST set drops from the main boss and the treasure room, while the armor and the ring drop quite commonly from the minions. The dagger's pretty interesting because it does shoot at a slower fire rate, being 40% of your usual dagger, and it has a 4 tile range, which is quite gross. But after coming out of invisibility, it does get pretty insane. It shoots this extra blade shot at 5.5 range, and 3 chain shots that armor pierce and have a 1, 2, and 3 tile range. The blade and chain shots also pierce enemies and obstacles. So not only does the damage increase a ton irregardless of what ability you use to go invisible, it covers one of the rogue's weaknesses, which is not being able to pierce and kill groups of enemies. The cloak starts off similar to a tier 6 because it makes you invisible for 5 seconds and deals extra damage per shot when coming out of stealth. This one scales with vitality though instead of wisdom, and does heaps of damage with the set since it gives you heaps of vitality with its set bonus. The base stats of the ST cloak are worse than tier 6, but it's cheaper, and wearing extra pieces of the set gives you even more bonuses, not including stats. When wearing the dagger with the cloak, you get 10 dex for 4 seconds when using the ability, and when using the ring alongside with the ability, you spawn 3 bats that circle you and deal 60 to 80 armor piercing damage with a 5.5 tile-ish range. The level of the ST set has base stats which rival tier 12, but if used with the ring of the set, you restore 100 HP when hit below 50% HP with a 15-second cooldown, so it's basically like an inbuilt Q-band ring. And lastly, the ring isn't as garbage as other ST rings usually are, giving 80 HP, 5 Vit and 5 Whiz. Nothing crazy, it does the job, but it also does make your ability and lever stronger by giving you the bats and the extra healing from the level. None of these pieces are amazing on their own, especially because they grant each other extra benefits, and the ST bonus makes the ability a lot better. The ST bonus is crazy. Just 2 pieces gives you 5 dex and 5 vitality, 3 pieces gives you another 5 dex, 10 vitality and 30 HP, and 4 pieces gives you an insane 4 defense, 15 dex, 20 vitality, and 30 HP. The set in total gives you an insane 170 HP, 40 vitality, and 25 dex. The health and the Vit give you insane survivability, especially for the early game, where you may not have maxed yet, have good items, or beginners tend to be in the early game quite a lot, so this will be extra nice for them since they might not have a good pet yet. The 40 vitality alone is healing you for 11.6 health per second, and gets you out of combat 1.6 seconds faster, which is roughly a third less of the time that it takes for your pet to start doing its job properly. These survivability stats are also pretty needed since the dagger does have that poor 4 range, which is a bit cringe, and rogue naturally has a tough time surviving compared to some other classes, especially because you can't lame perma-stealth anymore. Now the DPS of the set isn't as crazy as the survivability. When not using your ability, like when it's on cooldown or you're quieted, you do roughly as much damage as an O2 set with the dual daggers to a 0 defense target, then you do roughly 15% more at 15 def and 30% more at 50 def, thanks to the slower fire rate of the dagger, scaling better against higher defense enemies, but it is 20% less range. However, when you use your ability, because I'm comparing to the dual daggers, the ST set doesn't do as good. It does do slightly more than the O2 set at 0 defense, then 10% more at 15 defense, and 15% more at 50 defense. The damage of the ST set is also heavily dependent on how many of the chain shots you're hitting, which as you can see, can be pretty damn hard. I mean, you have to be kissing the enemy to hit them all, so good luck with that. When I was testing the damage of the ST set, I was hitting most of them against the target dummy, which in practice might not happen for you. But yeah, I was expecting the damage of the set to be better, to be honest, especially because of its poor range, but the survivability is pretty damn insane. Overall, the rogue set is pretty great. The survivability of it really carries, but you do need to go out of your way to farm the mana of the immortals. I think it deserves a low A tier. It's definitely a respectable strategy if you go for this set on a brand new rogue. Okay, moving right along to the Mad God's Messenger set, which is a set with its parts dropping from Oryx Castle and the Oryx's Lair. Now this set is pretty bonkers. It basically turns you into a battle priest. Let me first tell you about the unbelievable damage. So I compared the damage of this set to an O2 set with a conducting wand and a tier 6 attack ring, and the Mad God Messenger set does around 60% more damage at all defense levels. I am not trolling. This is mainly thanks to 3 different things: the strong wand, the crazy ability, and the ST bonuses. First, the wand is called the Theurgy wand, and it shoots 2 shots that pierce, but have a shortest range in practice because they split apart at a distance. You need to be at a 6 tile range to hit your target, so roughly 25% range than conducting wand, to deal full damage. You'd still hit half the shots at least, if you're out of range. And for this 25% less range than conducting wand, you're dealing 10% more damage, and the wand pierces. The ability is a much bigger reason for the damage difference when I was doing the testing. It's quite different to your normal tome. I mean, it still heals, but way less. The Merlot heals for 150 HP for 110 mana, while the tier 6 heals you for 250 HP for 120 mana. But that's the last reason you'd use this ST ability anyway. The main draw of it is that when you do smash your spacebar, you get 20 attack for 3 seconds, while also losing 5 defense for 3 seconds. This also stacks each time you use the ability within 3 seconds of using it, but it does half the stat bonuses. So if you do hit it 3 times quickly, you get 35 attack. The defense debuff isn't that much of a big deal, unless you're new to the game and not so good at the early game stuff, in which case this set might not be as good for you as someone who does have a lot of experience in the game and hates the low damage of Priest, in the beginning especially. Early game Priest damage is just depressing. Also, the ST bonus is pretty crazy. 2 dex and 2 attack for wearing 2 pieces, an extra 3 attack and 3 dex when you wear the 3rd piece, and for 4 pieces you get an insane 100 HP, 5 dex and 5 attack. So you get an extra 20 DPS stats just from the set bonuses alone when wearing the full set. The robe is also alright. It's basically a better tier 12 robe, trading out some of the Vit and Wiz stats for DPS stats instead. And the ring is just an ST ring, so it's mid-town. So how do you get these items? The ring drops from these bellends, the armor drops from the stone guardians, or the statues along the way to them, which you definitely want to clear because when you destroy all the statues, it opens the way up to Janus, which doubles your chance of getting the wand or ability, since Janus also drops the wand and ability as well as Oryx 1. If you do choose to go to Oryx 2, you get the chance of getting the Tome of the Furor, which is similar to Merlot except it gives dex on your spacebar. So something great to do is that you can use the Merlot, then the Furor Tome, and then you have a dex and attack boost without having to worry about the stack halving. Now, Oryx Castle isn't as farmable as the Manor, but the chance of getting these items from Oryx is quite high, and the best way to maximize the amount of Oryx runs is that you want to go to busy servers, since they have the most people clearing the server and they rotate to Oryx the fastest. US East and US East 2 are generally those, or you can jump around different servers to look for realms which are almost cleared. You'll find farming this set is easier than you think, given how much of an insane DPS set this brings to the pathetic early game priest, from a dungeon that you'll probably be doing anyway because Oryx is just great for potions and for upgrades. I gotta put this in the middle of S tier. Thanks to a genius named Javen from the community, he was able to set up merch for us after all these years. If you're a true Choof fan and you're looking to take our relationship a bit further by getting stuff with my face on it and quotes, you can now, by clicking the link down below. There's many different things to choose from, including cups, lunchboxes, towels, pillows, and desk mats. And I might be missing one thing, but they're super awesome, strong vouch. I have the pillow, the towel, the cups at my place. I love the cups especially because, as you can see, it's got my face and it's got some really awesome quotes like the Vidring, 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 and it has some Umi sprites in the background, including some white bag sprites. If you're looking to support me, this is a great way to do so. Next, we're gonna talk about the Horticultural Huntress set, which is a set that drops from the Magic Woods. Magic Woods is usually not a great dungeon to farm on bow classes. You can get yourself a decent healing ring, and if you're a bard, the Woodland Robe is a decent early game robe, but other than that, we're gonna be talking about getting the ST set. Now this set does have one ST item in it, being the trap. This ability is pretty cool because you get a benefit from the trap not hitting enemies, since whenever the trap is placed on the floor, and you or a teammate is standing in it, the player gets berserk and healing, making this a great way to increase DPS and survivability, if you're not playing alongside someone that can grant you these buffs. It's also a really mana efficient trap since it lasts for 8 seconds. It also does great damage thanks to its speed scaling and the set's insane speed set bonus, dealing slightly more than the tier 6 trap. The bow on the other hand, does garbage damage to be honest. Against a tier 0 target, the beginner bow only does slightly more damage than a tier 10 longbow, which is not what you want. However, since it does armor pierce, the damage doesn't decrease with enemy defense, which actually makes it one of the best endgame bows, especially thanks to its 8 tile range. The bow also doesn't pierce enemies, which is dreadful for early game since you need to clear a lot of little shits, but doesn't really matter in the endgame when you're versing singular targets a majority of the time. At least the trap does a good job at making up for the bow's poor clearing, since it does have decent damage and radius. I did a test and the beginner bow set actually does about 10% more than the leaf bow with a O2 set, but the ST set did do miserably less against a 0 defense target. At least there's one thing that's nice for early game with this set, and that's its decent DPS armor. It gives you a nice 8 dex and a passive ability where on getting hit, you have a 10% chance to get 10 dexterity for 5 seconds, on top of everything. This is nicer for early game since early game dungeons usually have lower damage shots than late game. I know, crazy right? Write that down. But yeah, it's quite tough to tank too many shots in an endgame dungeon to even get this proc off. The ring isn't too bad, it's 5 speed and 7 dex basically, and some MP if anyone cares. The set bonus though, it's pretty crazy. For 2 pieces you get 3 dex and 3 speed, for 3 pieces you get 5 dex, 5 speed and 40 HP, and for 4 speed you get another 5 dex, 5 speed, 3 defense and 70 HP. So in total you're getting a tasty 33 dex and 21 speed from the set, making you feel strong and glide gracefully like the beautiful fairy you are. It actually does feel really nice for some dungeons to have this much speed. This is the set that I used to Exalt Huntress against O-Freeze, but that was quite a while ago, and since then many other items have released that are stronger. All other items got more love than these items, like the 1000 shot bow for example. So yeah, it fell off pretty hard unfortunately thanks to power creep, but it's still an alright set. Even though this set is pretty nice for endgame, it's pretty easy to get a better set, and it is really bad for early game. Low B tier for this one. Now we have a super OG set, the Swole Paladin set. This set you find from the Candyland's hunting grounds. It's actually one of the easier ones to farm on this list in my opinion. You technically only have to find one dungeon, since Candyland can be an infinite dungeon. You're just going to have to spend quite a bit of time there, and it's going to damage your eyes probably. The sword is kind of like a shotgun where it fires many bullets at the same time, and you need to be close to hit all shots. Since it does fire so many projectiles and it doesn't armor pierce, the damage does get quickly reduced against enemy defense when it goes up. It still does a great job at clearing trash because of how many different shots it fires and its amazing high damage at short range. It does roughly 5% less damage than Demon Blade, though at a slightly tighter spread, though D-Blade is a lot easier to get. And Demon Blade is probably better because it does have a rare awakening enchant called the Hellfire Edge, and since Demon Blade only fires 2 shots usually, it does scale better against enemy defense. The seal is quite similar to a normal seal where it just gives you damaging for longer than tier 6 but at a higher cost, but alongside this you don't get any health boost or healing buff, but instead get a 15 defense boost and minus 15 speed loss on using your ability. I don't like defense much and I hate my speed getting reduced even more, but the temporary changes are pretty good for new players or for the early game, or both. The base stats of it are good though. You get 5 defense, 9 wisdom, and most importantly 9 attack, when the tier 6 seal only gives you 20 HP, 20 MP and 4 dex. The armor's pretty vanilla, it just gives you 20 def, 40 MP and 40 HP, instead of the 24 defense of Acrop. Slightly prefer the ST here, and the ring is poop. The set is also quite boring, the set bonus that is. Whenever you get 2 or 3 or 4 pieces, you get 25 HP, 25 mana, 2 attack and 2 defense each time. Overall, it's a great set for the early game, but sours more as you progress further. It does over 30% more damage than a standard O2 set at 15 defense, and 15% more damage at 50 defense. And it is a lot more tanky. Problem is you have to hit all of your shots, which requires you to be closer, but the 15 defense difference that this set has over the O2 set, and the 15 extra defense you get from using your ability, helps with that. You can also use your ability for more buffs, but it halves each time. So the second ability use will give you 8 defense, for example. Overall, I think it's okay, top of C tier. Next, we have the Hollow King Necromancer set. This set is the most spread out in terms of places you need to farm to get the pieces. The staff and robe drop from the boss and treasure room boss of the Undead Lair. The skull and the ring drop from the Ghost Kings, but you can also get the skull from the Flesh Golem from the Dead Church biome, and the ring from the Scarecrow from the same biome. This is also quite a vanilla set just like the last one. The staff is basically a tier 12 reskin, same range and roughly the same damage on a Necromancer, but the staff is easier and harder to get. What I mean by that is the drop rate of the ST staff is rarer, but the boss that you have to kill it is much easier than the tier 12 staff. The skull is really different though, and it's a high point of the set. It's even used by endgame players, but it may not be as special if you're a newer player. How the skull works, of course, as usual, it does the damaging on the spacebar around a small radius around your cursor, and the damage is actually pretty bad. It's like a tier 4 or tier 5 skull because it has no stat scaling, but where the skull is amazing is that when you press space, you get the damaging buff. Damaging gives you a 25% boost in your DPS, so this is especially good if you're a solo player and no one is around you to provide you that buff. It more than makes up for the gross AoE damage. It also has insane base stats, giving you 10 attack and 5 vitality. When I tested using the ST skull and the ST staff versus the tier 12 staff and the tier 6 skull, I was doing about 10% more damage. The Toga Pictor ST robe is so similar to the tier 12. You're just gaining 2 DPS stats at the cost of 6 wisdom basically. The ring is okay, 75 HP, 5 attack, 5 vit, nothing to scoff at. And the ST bonus, you ask? What the hell is it, Seb? It's also quite meh actually, only getting nice at the 4 pieces amount with 12 DPS stats. Now surprisingly, when I was wearing the full set, I was doing over 30% more damage to the 15 defense target dummy than the O2 set, probably thanks to all the extra DPS stats and the damaging buff. But in a group, you're most likely going to have the damaging buff already given to you, which basically wipes the damage difference between the sets. And then the O2 set will be better because it's got a higher base HP thanks to the skull, and much more healing thanks to the skull as well. The healing is absolutely insane if you're a beginner. You don't want to get rid of it, I think. I actually don't think this set is worth going for. Only the skull as a swap out. Top of D tier. Nice, we almost have 1 in each tier, so surely this one coming will go into the E tier so it looks perfect, right? And it might actually happen because we're talking about this OG set, the Phylactery set. If you've been playing for a while, you probably remember this set being garbage, so it looks like we are going to get 1 in each tier. Jokes, this set got quite a big buff, so you're about to get a pleasant surprise, or unpleasant if you have OCD and was hoping for that perfect looking tier list. The set, just like the last one we discussed, has all of its drops quite spread out. All of the pieces drop from the Dead Church biome, the weapon drops from the Cult Dude, the ability drops from this Gravekeeper guy, the armor drops from the Death Knight, and the ring drops from the normal Revenant enemies. This stuff is also similar to tier 12 again. It used to be absolutely garbage, but recently it got the buff that I was talking about, but it still does slightly less than tier 12 stuff with 1 tile less range, so it's still pretty gross. The orb got big changes. It now gives you Berserk and Speedy for around 5 seconds on the average Mystic, while also stasising around you with a 4.5 tile radius for 6 seconds. Trust me, Deca broke the tooltip somehow, that's why it's missing the Berserk and Speedy in the picture, Deca moment. Lucky you have me, right? So yeah, it doesn't give you Curse like your normal orb, but instead gives you the Berserk buff, which does make up for it, if you're not already getting it from another friendly player, because both give you a 25% damage boost. And Berserk is nice for clearing enemies early game since you get a higher fire rate. This is actually the only orb to Berserk nowadays. No base stats though, unfortunately, unlike the tier 6 orb, which gives you some dex and some HP. The robe robe is called the Soulless robe and is a great tanky robe for how easy it is to acquire, versus the next easiest to acquire tanky robe. It gives you a whopping 15 defense and 60 HP. It's great if you find yourself oofing too much. And the ring is pretty insane for its total value. You get 80 MP, 8 whiz, and 8 attack. Now the set bonus is the most insane part of this set actually, and it's the most insane set bonus in this video so far. At 2 pieces, you're getting 20 HP, 15 MP, 6 speed, and 7 whiz. Already a lot. At 3 pieces, you're getting 20 HP, 15 MP, 6 def, and 8 vit. And at 4 pieces, you're getting 20 HP, 15 MP, 7 attack, and 6 defense. Even though you're getting so many stats, it could be better because they're quite random and spread out, versus if they were just DPS stats, or something that you can scale an ability with, even though Mystic doesn't have stat scaling yet. But yeah, you get a bloody 40 stats in total. Bloody hell. This set makes you feel nice, tanky, and speedy, especially if you use your ability. Then you're zooming, like you had too many coffees like me. However, the DPS is quite sad. It's actually 5% less than the tier 12 set, with 1 less tile range. Overall, in my opinion, it's not really worth going out of your way for, especially if you're not good with speedy and rushing dungeons. Otherwise it can be quite nice. You're much better off just spamming magic woods for the full set there for early game. The orb and robe can be a nice pickup though. I'd put this in the D tier above the necro set. It used to be E tier, damn it. Now, for some samurai love with the Daring Discoverer Samurai set. Just like the last 2 sets, this set is pretty spread out among a whole biome, this time in the Abandoned City. You can get the katana from the Sword in the Stone, the ability from the Dragon's Treasure, but you can also get it from the Oasis Giant from the Desert biome. You can get the armor from this dude in this building, but also the Phoenix from the Desert biome, and lastly the ring from the plain old Medusas. Okay, we're ending this video with a bang. The katana is similar to a tier 12, but it's got 5% more range and 10% more damage and is really easy to get, since the swords in the stone are quite plentiful and respawn often. But what about the wacky? Well, it's super similar to the tiered, but it does about 30% more damage. Is that bonkers or what? It does have quite a steep cost though, not MP wise, it's quite similar to the tier 6, but instead it doesn't pierce or expose, which to me is worth the trade-off. Oh yeah, and it doesn't have any base stats. Still worth it though, I think. The armor has 4 less defense than Acrop, with 40 MP, but if you're wearing the ring alongside it, you get 20 vitality for 4 seconds upon getting hit, with a 6-second cooldown. Again, worth the trade-off over the tiered in my opinion. Lastly, the ring gives you a bit of nice stats being 70 HP, 6 speed, and 3 attack. Well, how about the ST bonus? At 2 pieces you get 40 MP, 4 speed, and 4 def. At 3 pieces you get 50 MP, 5 attack, and 4 def, and wearing the full set you get 40 health, 8 attack, and 8 def. So it's an okay set bonus at least, but you won't believe this. When testing this set, I was actually dealing 50% more damage against the 15 defense target dummy. That is just insane and makes this the best option for samurai game quite easily. I recommend farming this set right away on a new samurai. It's also insane considering the last 2 sets that we talked about kind of need to be solo to get most of their DPS. But if you're in a group, you still gain maximum benefit from getting the damaging buff, the berserk buff, or the curse buff from your teammates. Also, since you're farming in the Abandoned City biome, where you have to farm for this set, Sewers is also a constant dropping dungeon, where you can get the Void Blade, a definite ST item for the class, another item you really need to get. Plus, this set does make you a decent amount tankier, and is not too tough to get. This has to go at the top of S tier. Guys, that's it for this video. There's going to be a second part to this video, so make sure to subscribe. Also, big shout out to my supporters on Patreon, my YouTube members, and my tier 3 subscribers on Twitch. I love you guys so much. Before I end off the video, what do you guys think will be at the top of S tier and at the bottom of E tier by the end of the next video? Talk to you guys next time. Peace.